I'm very skeptical of sort of motivational stories that you hear in terms of that motivation. The reason why people don't do something is that they're not motivated to do it. And I am extremely skeptical of this economic logic that you simply have to just provide the right amount of money, the right task, the right sort of narrow enough task to do it, and then people will actually do that. I am much more, and that's an economic logic, and I think a lot, perhaps maybe if not most, economists probably are skeptical of it as well. The ones that are well trained, um, that they're have a PhD in economics, for example, right? But it is a pervasive notion that is particularly in America, that this is the way that you sort of motivate people and get them to go ahead to actually get stuff done, is that there's this really direct link between having some incentive, whether it is scoring well in a test, um, and then getting some outcome from that particular thing. And it's based on, competitive logics, but it's also based on the notion that there is usually a direct one-to-one relationship between providing an incentive and getting out of it. If that was the case, it'd actually be really, really easy to motivate people to get off of drugs, for example, right? You just simply pay them, or on the sort of flip side, which is I think what most of society does, is just have a severe penalty from doing them, right? So you go broke and live on the street. But we know that none of that actually works, right? We can see that the drug problem continues to get worse in America. Um, there's a lot more sort of social despair, I would say, in America than in many other countries, because of this logic, right? We have, and this is well known, right? Like this is in sociology, I believe. It was Emil Durkheim was sort of looking at this and looking at uh, you know, it wasn't particularly within, motivation, but the logic kind of holds true in this sort of story of, he was calling it enemy, and that was like 100 years ago. That he was looking at why people feel, um, why people actually have you. I think he was looking at suicide in men, for example, and that there is a big difference between them. And he was sort of pointed out that that's because they have this normlessness. And it's always sort of stuck with me as one of my sociology training that came out and sticks with me, is that the human nature that we have is not atomistic, right? We have to sort of realize that it's not just about the individual. It's not just about the incentive to sort of put on displays and status. The key motivation behind that, if you were to look at why people, quote unquote, are motivated to, make more money or whatnot, it's often just status, that you're putting a display, um, that you're moving up in some sort of way, and often it's, having displays of that particular status. But we know that that is not true either. So what is the story, or what can we do? I think we need to focus more on the downside of things, right? We often see, if you were to look at any swath of, um, any particular industry, for example, or profession or career, and you were to take a swath, there's a lot of people that are just simply not, quote unquote, motivated, that they don't have that sort of pursue of the world. And I think we're looking at the problem wrong. I think what we're looking at, or what we should actually look at, is look at why they're not moving to other things. Why are they sort of, quote unquote, stuck in a particular area? And in my view, right, if we focus on sort of the mobility side of things, then I personally think people are just, they are often intrinsically motivated if you find them, find the right thing for them, they're just going to love to do that, right? If you love to lick lollipops all day, you're going to love to lick lollipops. Um, Now, the other thing is motivation often assumes that you're wringing out a cloth, right? And the more that you can sort of get out of somebody in sort of work effort, the better off it actually is. But if you look at most people, they can only work so much in a given day. And often, what is driving the effects of motivation are things like specialization and technological change. Right? So it's not even really to do with the individual themselves. This has to do with other things that are driving forces behind the individual. That perhaps that they sort of pick up on that. So what can we do, right? Like, um, I think reducing the barriers of feeling what it means to feel like a failure, right? We often think if you're not motivated or you don't sort of get to a certain area, that that you're a failure, and that's the way it frames the economic logic frames it, is that you're unmotivated, you're lazy, you're stupid. You've got all of these sort of baggage sort of claims that are associated with it. But in reality, it's just that that is just not your thing at this given moment in time. And maybe at some point in the future it will be. So, what do you do? Reduce the barriers to find other things that are helpful for you, right? So, that might be, in some circumstances, is letting people sort of feel the pain of what it means to not do something, right? Like not have a job, for example, and finding a little bit of the pain, and you'll find different things that are of interest to you, allowing people to explore freely, allowing them to um, you know go into different domains, allowing them to say, hey, I tried this thing, it did not work out at this moment, but let's try something else. Let's go in and do it. Doing things where you try many different career aspects. Maybe it's just not the one specific thing within the domain that is just not resonating with you. So try out 10 different things that finds the thing, or that you're like, hey, I actually kind of like this, or it clicks, or it feels right to you. Um, and often it's there's a lot more to it, where you are often reflecting on how other people are sort of perceiving you of doing these other things that often feel like a waste of time, that other people will discount, and so you never do those things. You're like, why would I ever do those things? I never get any sort of credit or value. They seem stupid, all of those kind of things. And I think it's actually just removing those barriers, right? Like having people love themselves no matter what the hell they're doing and whatever they sort of choose, and sort of rewarding that they choose those particular things, right? If we want to, we should ideally think about how we can focus on the quick firing side, I guess, right? It's not, or not necessarily firing, but thinking about how do we encourage mobility more often, because it just might not be the case, and you have them try the thing out. If it doesn't work, you have them move on to something else. And I think focusing on the mobility side, and and really emphasizing that, I think it's a much more healthier way, because people can come and go and try things out, and experiment with it. Now, why doesn't often happen is because of contracts and obligations, and all of these sort of long-term things. The search costs, the transaction costs, that are associated with it, like all these sort of different costs that are associated with it. But we need to figure out how to remove those things. We need to emphasize that you're perfectly normal to not like something, and you're perfectly normal to go into all sorts of different domains. whatever that might be for you. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.